5 people wake up in a huge hall. None of them remember who they are or how they got here. They see a giant closed door. The people look around the room and notice something strange. What is it? These statuettes. They are hidden all over the room. There are 5 people in the room, but they find 6 statuettes.
This must be the key,
one man says.
We need to find out which of the statuettes is the odd one.
Can you guess which one? This one. Its eyes are different from those of the others. The people try to use the odd statuette as a key.
Come on!
And it works. The door opens and everyone enters the next room. But when the man who suggested using the statuettes looks around, he sees that he is alone in there. Suddenly, a ghost of a woman appears in front of him. If you want to get out, each of you must solve my riddles, she says. But you will definitely fail. She disappears. The man looks around the room. He finds a strange symbol and a cipher decoder on the table. Can you find 9 other symbols? These are all 10 symbols. The man begins to unravel the message using a decoder. Can you decipher it? It says page 52. The man opens the book lying on the table. On page 52, there's a riddle written in an ancient language. If you have me, you want to share me. If you share me, you haven't got me. What am I? The man immediately guesses the answer. Can you? It's a secret. The man is surprised that he was able to read the riddle written in an ancient language. The answer is the password to the door. He types it in and the door opens. Suddenly, he remembers. His name is Thomas. He's a linguist and a cryptographer. Meanwhile, in another room, a young man finds himself in a beautiful place full of plants. There are 3 flowers on the table. They giggle maliciously. The sign in front of them reads, "Lying Flowers." The first flower says, "You'll never get out of here, and you'll never get rid of us. Just give up already." The second one says,
I don't remember how you can get rid of us. It was either cutting or uprooting us.
The third one says,
Uprooting and plucking us are both proper ways.
What should the guy do? Cut the flowers, uproot them, or pluck them? Pluck is the correct answer. These flowers only tell lies. So the conclusions we can draw from their words are these. 1. There is a way to get rid of them. 2. It is neither cutting nor uprooting. 3. And there's only one way to remove them. The only thing that remains is plucking. The guy plucks the flowers. He notices that glowing letters appear on their petals. The letters need to be put together to get the answer. What is it? The word is basket. The guy examines the basket and finds a folded note at the bottom. He unfolds it and reads this riddle. In a pond, there are some flowers with bees hovering over them. How many flowers and bees are there if both of the following statements are true? 1. If each bee lands on a flower, one bee won't get a flower. 2. If every 2 bees share a flower, there is 1 extra flower. Can you help the guy crack this riddle? There are 4 bees and 3 flowers. Suddenly, a sunflower bud appears on the table. The guy uses it as a key to the door, and it opens. And then he remembers. His name is John, and he's a gardener. In another room, a girl finds herself surrounded by beautiful crystals and gemstones. On the wall, there's a board with the names and pictures of different gems. Some of the gems are the answers to these riddles. 1. Did you know that the queens and the kings of all times really enjoyed that pretty purple color of mine? 2. My name is like water. I'm as blue as the sea. Can you guess what I am and which picture is me? 3. Hey, I am from water as well. I'm seen in strings and found inside a shell. 4. You know me so well. Come on, be excited. I created the city where a wizard resided. 5. I sound like danger, but please don't be scared. I'm striped like a cat and named after its stare. Can you match the riddles and the gems? The correct answers are 1. Amethyst, 2. Aquamarine, 3. Pearl, 4. Emerald, and 5. Tiger's eye. The girl hears some noise and notices that the box on the table has opened. She comes up to the box and reads the next riddle. The queen went to the king to complain about her lady-in-waiting. In the morning, the queen put her amethyst necklace in a jewelry box to protect it from sunlight. No wonder, this stone tends to fade in the sun. She spent the day in the library reading books. At one point, she looked out of the window and noticed her lady-in-waiting. She was sitting in the garden, wearing the queen's necklace. The lady-in-waiting began crying and said this was not true. She would never steal from the queen. The king opened the jewelry box and found out that the necklace was still inside. Who is lying? The girl soon realizes that the lady-in-waiting is the liar. Have you noticed that the amethyst is now much dimmer than before? That means that the lady-in-waiting really wore the necklace outside. The girl solves the riddle. 3 gemstones appear at the bottom of the jewelry box: citrine, garnet, and alexandrite. There's also a note that says, "Figure out the weight of each stone without using scales. This riddle will help you." Can you figure out the weight of each stone? The citrine weighs 10 ounces, the garnet weighs 4 ounces, and the alexandrite weighs 2 ounces. Suddenly, the girl remembers. Her name is Melissa. She is a jeweler and collects crystals. In another room, a woman finds 6 glasses on the table. 3 of them are empty, and 3 are full of water. The woman sees a note. Move only 1 glass to make a row of alternately full and empty glasses. How can she do it? She should take the 5th glass and pour the water into the second one. Suddenly, the glasses disappear. Instead, 2 sets of different ingredients and a note appear on the table. The note says, "Find 3 differences." Can you spot all of them? These are the differences. The woman takes the ingredients and throws them into a cauldron, but something is missing. Shiny and beautiful, a werewolf's fear. We need to get more of it for our precious queen. Coins and mirrors, trays and tea sets, the nobles were buying while falling in debts. It's silver. The woman adds some silver and gets a potion that can melt the lock. When she opens the door, she remembers. Her name is Lauren, and she's a chemist. An elderly woman finds herself in this room. She spots 4 photos on the table. All the photos seem to be taken in different periods of time. The note says, "Is there a person who is present in every photo?" Can you help the woman figure it out? Here she is. Despite the signs of aging, you can see that this is the same woman. Look, she has this mole above her lip. A mirror appears in front of the elderly woman. Wait, is that her? The woman from the photos? The mirror shows her with a guy in a suit. He looks confused. There's a maid on the left and a bride on the right. "Don't listen to her. I'm your wife," says the bride. "You're lying. I'm his wife," the maid cries. Can you guess who is lying? The girl on the left is his wife because she has a wedding ring on her finger. Wait, she also has the same mole above her lip. Is this our elderly woman when she was young? The letters appear in the mirror. IVTCBOE. What does that mean? I'll give you a hint. Try to think outside the box. It's husband. Each letter in this word is replaced by the next letter in the alphabet. And suddenly, the woman remembers. Her name is Brienne. She's a witch, and this is her castle. Brienne opens the door. Everyone else has already gathered outside. "I'm your mother," she says. "We know," Thomas replies. "Another witch tried to steal our father. She erased our memories and put a spell on him. I deciphered the recipe for the potion that can help him remember, but I'll need your help." There is a large cauldron in the hall. Everyone uses their knowledge to prepare the potion. Now Brienne must cast a spell. Solve the puzzle to find out the magic word. It's Memoria. The potion is ready. Suddenly, 3 doors appear in front of the family. Behind the first door, there's a hot desert, but there are some fruits on the trees growing there. The second door opens to the middle of the sea. Behind the third door, there's an endless forest. What should the family do? They should use the trees to make a raft and pick up the fruits so that they don't starve. Now they can cross the sea. Meanwhile, Brienne uses a spell to chain the witch. Solve another puzzle to learn the spell she uses. It's Sigillum. Now the witch won't bother them anymore. The family leaves the castle and lives happily ever after. Tomas was washing a window on the 24th floor of a large office building, and suddenly he heard someone screaming. The guy looked outside and saw a lady falling from the 30th floor. But in 5 minutes, the woman was standing on the ground, totally unharmed. How did she survive? Take a closer look at the sky. Yes, it's Superman! He saved the lady. Look at the picture. What's wrong here? Watermelons don't grow on palms. Twin brothers Stan and Ken had been working hard. They wanted to collect money for their mother's anniversary. Unfortunately, they didn't manage to save enough to buy her the car of her dreams. The brothers were very upset and agreed to go shopping the next day and pick another gift. At night, Ken couldn't fall asleep because he got a genius idea. While his twin was sleeping, Ken secretly took all their savings and headed to a casino. It was his lucky night. He tripled the sum. In the morning, Ken put all the money back in the box and fell asleep. Stan woke up, opened the box, and immediately realized that Ken had touched their savings. He didn't even need to count the money to understand that. How did Stan figure it out? In the box, there were large and small bills in the evening. but now there are only large ones. Kelly was traveling and discovered a beautiful abandoned castle. She entered the building and went downstairs. She was taking pictures when someone locked her inside the basement. Kelly looked around and saw 3 tunnels leading to freedom. In the first tunnel, a huge hungry monster was waiting for her. The second tunnel was full of snakes, and the third tunnel was filled with sleeping gas. In 5 minutes, Kelly was outside the castle, running to the nearest police station. How did she escape? She used her headband as a mask and ran away through the third door. Look at these animals attentively. What's wrong with this picture? This little guy on the left is listening to music. 2 sisters went on a hike. Each of them took a box of matches. Nellie put her matches in a bag together with toothpaste, and Shelley decided to store her matches in a bag with nail polish. While the sisters were walking through the forest, they accidentally fell into a huge puddle. When they got out of it, Shelley suggested making a fire to dry their clothes and cook something to eat. Both sisters took out their matches. Unfortunately, Nellie's matches were covered in toothpaste, and Shelley's were in nail polish. Both girls left the matches to dry in the sun and left to collect some firewood. It started raining, and all the matches got soaked. But 10 minutes later, the sisters still managed to make a fire and toast some marshmallows. Whose matches did they use? They used Shelley's matches. The nail polish dried and made them waterproof. If you don't keep it, it'll break. What is it? It's a promise. Susan was asked to describe her sons. She said, "They're all redheads but 3, all blondes but 3, all brunettes but 3, and all pink-haired but 3. How many sons did Susan have? The answer is 4. 1 redhead, 1 pink-haired, 1 brunette, and 1 blonde. Lisa was a famous top model. She was found unconscious in her dressing room during a photo shoot and taken to a hospital. Doctors said she had a severe allergic reaction, but when Lisa came to herself, she insisted she hadn't eaten anything all day. The model's manager was very concerned and interrogated everyone who had been around Lisa. The stylist said she had applied Lisa's makeup and, indeed, hadn't seen her eating anything. The cleaning lady said she had cleaned the dressing room with organic, non-allergenic products. Lisa's main rival, Nora, said she had been watching the shooting all day long. She hadn't noticed anything suspicious. Who's the culprit? It was the stylist. Lipstick was the only thing Lisa could have swallowed that day. Look at the pictures. Which of these people is a risk taker? The girl is risking less. She's sitting on the second floor, and there's a pool below. The guy is risking more. The building he's sitting on is taller. You can see clouds and planes in the sky. What food can you never cheer up? A blueberry, because it's always blue. Haha. Okay, let's move on. There are 5 lemons in a bowl. You take away 3 of them. How many lemons do you have now? Well, you have the 3 lemons you took. King Gerald has a very beautiful daughter named Teresa. 4 princes from different countries came to the kingdom, hoping to marry the girl. But the king decided to check how smart they were and organized a special contest. Teresa was in the center of a 200 by 200 foot room, and the princes were standing on small boxes in each corner of the room. The first prince to touch Teresa's hand would become her husband. but they weren't allowed to leave their places or use anything but their hands or wits. One of the princes figured out what to do immediately. He married the princess. What did he do? He just asked Teresa to come over and touched her hand. You can easily find me on Earth, Mars, Mercury, and even Jupiter, but you'll never find me on the Moon, Venus, or Pluto. What am I? I'm the letter R. Manager George received an anonymous text message. It said a robber had just entered the supermarket where he worked. George hurried into the hall and saw 4 pregnant women in the grocery section. The man looked at the ladies attentively, detected the thief, and called the police. How did he know? The woman on the right is the only one who doesn't have a shopping basket or cart. She's putting groceries inside her fake belly.
Imagine that you're in a room with no windows and no doors. How can you get out?
Just stop imagining the room. Mrs. Victoria decided to give her grandson Rick an unusual gift for his 18th birthday. She called him into her room, showed the guy her safe, and handed him a corked bottle with a key inside.
Honey, this is the key to my safe. You can keep all the money you find there if you manage to open it. But you must take the key out without removing the cork or breaking the bottle. Good luck.
Rick accepted the challenge and started thinking about the puzzle. What would you do to get the key out? Push the cork into the bottle, and you'll easily get the key. Look at the picture. What's wrong here? The lady's reflection is holding the bag in the wrong hand. Amy had a crush on her neighbor. She went to the local witch, Sally, to ask for her help. Sally said she would make a purple love potion. On the night of the full moon, Sally took a sheet of paper with her granny's love potion recipe. She mixed all the ingredients except for the last one. Suddenly, a gust of wind threw the recipe into the fireplace. Sally was desperate. She didn't remember the name of the last ingredient, but she still knew for sure that the potion should be purple. Help Sally finish her work. She should add the blue ingredient. When you mix blue and red, they make purple. Harry and 3 other video bloggers traveled to a creepy canyon. They wanted to make a video about this mysterious place. They had been filming all day long. In the evening, they gathered around the fire, but it started to rain and everyone went to sleep in their tents. In the morning, Harry woke up, left his tent, and headed to the big bag with food to grab something for breakfast. That's when he discovered that all the food was gone. Harry got angry. He woke everyone up and interrogated the members of his team. Fred said he'd been looking at the starry sky all night. Jane said she'd been trying to catch a Wi-Fi signal to have a video chat with her boyfriend. And Sam said he'd been sleeping. Who is lying? It's Fred. It was raining at night, and he couldn't see any stars through the clouds. 2 students, Betty and Sarah, went for a walk after a very stressful test. They bought some coffee and candies and began to look for a picturesque spot for a picnic in the park. But suddenly, a guy in a mask grabbed Betty's bag and ran away. Sarah and Betty followed him. At one point, they saw a blind man sitting on a bench. He was wearing glasses and had a cane. The girls asked him if he'd seen a person in a mask carrying a female bag, but the man said he couldn't have seen anyone because he was blind. Sarah got very embarrassed, handed him a candy, and thanked him for his help. Then the girl took Betty aside and whispered that the blind man was the robber. They needed to call the police. Betty was very surprised. Why did Sarah decide the man was the robber? If the man was indeed blind, he wouldn't have seen the candy. Will's mother has 3 sons, Fred, Peter, and... Will. It's Will's mother, after all. 2 mothers and 2 daughters spent all day shopping, but they only bought 6 dresses. This was enough for each of them to have 2 dresses. How is that possible? Only 3 people went shopping: a mother, her daughter, and her daughter's daughter. One of them is a daughter and a mother at the same time, and each of the 3 purchased 2 new dresses.
A young woman went to another town to look for a better job. She promised her mother she would come and visit her often. But 4 months passed, and she still didn't come home. Her mother missed her very much. One day, in the middle of winter, the woman shouted, "April is here!" How is it possible? April was her daughter's name. She finally came to visit her family. It's usually under you. Take away its first letter, and it'll be above you. Take away its first 2 letters, and you won't see it. What is it? It's a chair, which can transform into hair and air. Look at this picture and try to understand what's wrong with it. Why would this young lady put a pair of boots on the table and a saw in the fridge? How about this image? Does anything strike you as odd? There's a snowman in the oven and a fish in the toaster. Dennis, Maria, and Julie were at a party. They decided to play a game. There were 5 hats, 2 red ones and 3 yellow ones. The friends closed their eyes, took random hats, and put them on their heads. Then they opened their eyes and looked at one another. Each of them had to guess what color the hat on their head was. Dennis and Julie said they didn't know, but Maria exclaimed that she knew the color of her hat. What color was it? It was yellow. Maria saw that Dennis and Julie were wearing red hats, and she knew there were only 2 of those. You can't share it until you take it. What is it? It's a photo. You see a combination of letters OTTFFSS. What should be the next 3 letters in the line? They should be ENT. These are the first letters of the names of the numbers from 1 to 10. Michael was walking along the street when a sealed envelope landed near his feet. The guy picked it up. Inside, there was a key and a note. It said, "Help, 323." Michael entered the building. Soon, he found a door number 323 and used the key to open it. He saw a man near the open window. He was gagged and tied to a chair. Once free, the man exclaimed, "2 men broke into my office, tied me up, and took all the money from my safe. Luckily, my hands were free. I managed to write this note and throw it together with the key out the window." Michael didn't believe the man and called the police. Why? The envelope was sealed. How could the man do it if he was gagged? It can never be thrown, but it can be caught. People are always looking for ways to lose it. What is it? It's a cold. 2 teams were playing soccer against each other. Each of the teams scored 2 goals in total. And still, it wasn't a tie. One team won and the other lost. How come? One of the teams scored an own goal. Young but very popular blogger Eric wrote his first book. It was a huge success. The guy was preparing for his first book signing. He was very excited and nervous, so he took a break to steady his nerves in a quiet corner. But even at 6 p.m., when the meeting was supposed to start, Eric was nowhere to be seen. In 10 minutes, a security guard found him lying on the floor in the bathroom. Someone had hit the writer on the head. The police had 3 suspects. Angela, his agent, said she had been solving some urgent organizational issues. Frank, one of the fans, said he had been a great lover of Eric's books for years. He wouldn't do anything to harm the writer. And Patrick, the security guard, said he had been doing his job, keeping the fans away from the entrance. Who hit Eric? It was Frank. It was Eric's first book. Frank couldn't possibly be reading his books for years. Look at these guys carefully. Who is a fake fireman? It's the guy on the right. He's not wearing a helmet and doesn't have a special bag. Plus, his pants aren't part of the uniform. You have 3 empty cups and 10 sugar cubes. You need to distribute these sugar cubes between the cups so that each of them contains an odd number of cubes. Put 3 sugar cubes in the first cup and 3 cubes in the second one. After that, put the remaining 4 cubes and the second cup in cup number 3. Now, the first cup has 3 sugar cubes, and the second one has 3 sugar cubes too. As for the third cup, it has 7 sugar cubes, 4 of its own and 3 in the second cup. 2 roommates, Deborah and Rachel, were walking home after doing their weekly grocery shopping. Deborah kept complaining about how heavy her bags were. Then Rachel told her, "I don't understand why you're upset. If you gave me one of your bags, I would have twice more bags than you do. And if I gave you one of mine, we would have the same number of bags." How many bags were the girls carrying? Rachel had 7 bags, while Deborah was only carrying 5 bags. Detective Black's assistant, Josh, was late for work. When he arrived, he told his boss the following story. "I was driving along the highway when I saw an unconscious man lying on the left side of the road. I picked him up and took him to the nearest hospital. Finally, he came to his senses. He told me he had been pushed out of the moving vehicle. The bag and all of his money and documents were left inside." But Detective Black said the man was lying. How did he figure it out? If the man had indeed been pushed out of the car, he would have been lying on the right side of the road, not the left one. Kenneth was starving. He found a nice diner that served burgers and bought one. After a waiter brought him his order, Kenneth went to the bathroom to wash his hands. But when he came back, his burger was gone. The guy looked around the diner and understood who had taken his lunch. Can you figure it out? It's the young woman with a dog sitting at her feet and sniffing the air. If she was just drinking coffee, which is what she's pretending to do, the dog wouldn't be so interested in her. Mary was walking through the park when she spotted a hungry dog. The woman decided to share her snack with the animal. Unfortunately, there was a stream between her and the pooch. She squatted down to attract the dog's attention and showed it the food. The animal was next to her in no time. There was no bridge over the stream, and still the dog wasn't wet. How is it possible? It happened in the winter, and the stream was frozen. A rich entrepreneur disappeared from his office. The only thing he left behind was a note with the numbers 6, 4, 9, 10, and 11, and a calendar. The police have 5 suspects: James, Kevin, Carol, Jason, and Laura. Who knows something about the man's disappearance? It's Jason. The numbers mean months of the year, and the first numbers of these months make up the culprit's name, Jason. Matthew bought a new smartphone and a phone case. He paid $310. The gadget cost $300 more than the case. How much did Matthew pay for the phone? He paid $305. Tony was hosting a party. 3 hours after it started, several guests came up to the guy. They asked where they could charge their phones. Unfortunately, there was only one socket in Tony's house. The guy checked all the power strips he had. Help him figure out how many phones he can charge at a time. Tony can charge 8 phones. Look, one strip has its cord cut. The strip with one socket is literally useless. One of the strips doesn't have a cord whatsoever. Another has no hole for a plug. Plus, one socket on each of the 2 strips will be taken by the plugs from the others. A rich businessman called the police. When he arrived at his office in the morning, he remembered he had left a bunch of important documents in his safe at home. He sent his secretary, John, to bring them. But the guy called half an hour later. He said the safe was open. The documents were still inside, but all the money had disappeared. The police examined the businessman's home office. They tried to find some fingerprints. Nothing at all. The detective had 3 suspects: the secretary, the businessman's nephew, Mark, and the housekeeper. The secretary said he had called his boss as soon as he had seen the safe. Mark said, "I opened the door for John. Then I went to my room and found out about the accident only after John called me." The housekeeper told the police she had been very busy with her chores and hadn't been to the office since the previous evening. Who took the money? It was the secretary. There were no fingerprints in the room, but John was there and definitely touched different things. If he hadn't been guilty, he wouldn't have wiped his fingerprints off. Can you find a dino that is different than the rest? Right, it's this one. Now, it was the snowiest winter in the last 30 years. One morning, local police officer Chris was patrolling the area. Suddenly, he noticed a suspicious young lady. She was walking towards the road and carrying 2 heavy bags. Chris asked her what was in the bags. The lady said she had broken up with her boyfriend and packed his stuff to get rid of it. But Chris knew for sure that she was a burglar. How? She got out of the house through the window. People don't do that when leaving their own homes. Noah was an alien on a mission to investigate human behavior on vacation. He landed near a popular sand beach in Malibu. Noah put on a special human-like costume and hid in the crowd. Special Agent Sam was sent to the beach to deal with this issue. Sam arrived and questioned people at the seaside. He warned them that aliens might look like humans, but no one seems to have noticed anything suspicious. Take a look at these vacationers. Which one of them is the alien? That's right, the guy on the left has 4 arms. Yeah, that's a clue. Agent Sam caught the alien, but Noah changed his appearance and managed to escape. Sam noticed a weird figure jumping inside a train. The man decided to stop the train to check all the passengers. Look at the picture attentively and help Sam find the alien. The old man in the right corner is the alien. He's holding a book upside down. Vicky was working on her laptop in a coffee shop. At one point, Vicky needed to go to the bathroom. She decided it'd be safe enough to leave her stuff unattended and headed to the bathroom. But when the girl returned, she found out that her backpack and her laptop were missing.
Oh, no.
Vicky ran outside and saw 3 elderly ladies with picnic baskets sitting in the park. The girl asked them if they had seen the thief, but all 3 of them assured her they hadn't noticed anyone. Ms. Green said she had just joined her friends. Ms. Smith was eating her sandwich and reading a newspaper, and Ms. Jackson was taking pictures of birds. Vicky called the police because she knew for sure who the thief was. How did she figure it out? Ms. Green stole Vicky's things. The red backpack strap is hanging out of her picnic basket. Paul stayed late at the library. When he finished studying, he headed home. As he was walking down the dark hallway, he heard a voice coming from the men's locker room. Paul noticed that someone had locked the door from the outside. Paul opened it and saw Tom. The guy had no idea who had locked him in. He went to the swimming pool, but it was closed that day, so he decided to go home. Suddenly, someone turned off the lights and locked him in. Paul promised to find the culprit. The next morning, he questioned his classmates. Courtney said she had been working on her project in the classroom. Josh said, "I swam in the pool for a while and then went to play basketball." Bob was with Courtney, but he left earlier to celebrate his granny's birthday with his family. Paul understood who was lying right away. What about you? It was Josh. The day before, the swimming pool was closed. Andrew is a photographer. He was walking alone in the wilderness and met a puma. The guy was very lucky and managed to escape, but he found out that his filter water bottle opened when he was running away from the animal. Now he didn't have any water left. Some time passed and Andrew got very thirsty. He had 3 options. The first one was to drink from a salty lake, the second to drink cactus juice, and the third option was to get water from a muddy stream. Help Andrew make the right choice. The third option is the least dangerous. You can't drink water from a salt lake, it won't quench your thirst. If Andrew drank cactus juice, he would get poisoned, but his filter bottle can easily clean muddy water. It has 13 hearts but no other organs. Ooh, what's the name of this creature? It's a deck of cards. What can you catch but never throw? A cold. A team of video bloggers headed to a famous haunted house to make a video about the mysteries hidden inside. When they arrived, they didn't see anything strange. The house didn't look creepy at all. The guys walked up to the building, but cameraman George turned around and refused to enter the house. His friends tried to convince him, but the guy insisted they should leave the area immediately. His friends ignored his warnings and entered the building. George was waiting for them in the street all night, but they never came out. Look at the picture and try to detect what was wrong with the house. Look at the ground. All footprints lead to the house, but there are no footprints leading away from the building. Ooh. I always run, but I never walk. I have a mouth, but I never talk. I have a head, but I never weep. What am I? That's right, I'm a river. Look at the picture. Can you spot a burglar? That's right. The thief is inside the house on the left, standing next to the window. One Saturday morning, 2 sisters, Jenny and Maya, played hide-and-seek at home. It was Jenny's turn to hide, and she decided to bring the game to the next level. So she got on her longboard, left the house, and hit the road. Maya counted to 100 and began looking for Jenny. She searched the entire house but didn't find her sister. The teenager started to worry. She went out to the street and decided to ask the neighbors. Alice said she had been mowing the lawn all morning and hadn't seen anyone. Derek said he had been woken up by the sound of longboard wheels. Lisa said she had been on a business trip and had just returned. But Maya knew for sure that one of her neighbors was lying. Who was it? Alice lied. Take a closer look. Her lawn isn't mowed. What letter of the alphabet is also an organ in the human body? It's the letter I. Ay, ay, ay. A princess escaped from a dragon who kept her in a tower. She was walking along a dark underground hall with a sand floor when suddenly she saw 3 tunnels. A fire was blazing inside the first tunnel. Toxic acid was dripping from the ceiling in the second tunnel, and the third tunnel was filled with venomous scorpions. 5 minutes later, the princess got to the surface and ran through the forest toward her kingdom. Which tunnel did she choose? The first tunnel. She put out the flames with sand. Smart princess. I can be touched, but I can't be seen. What am I? The heart is the right answer. Look at the picture. What's wrong here? The sign says fresh meat. Mike woke up in the middle of the night because he had a nightmare. He looked around and realized he was trapped in a weird house. Mike searched the place and found 4 doors to freedom. But the first door led to space. Behind the second door, there was a giant magnifying glass. Anyone who stepped inside would be burned by the sun in no time. The third door was hiding a pride of hungry lions. And behind the fourth door, there was an ocean swarming with sharks. Help Mike choose the right door. It's the second one. Sun rays aren't dangerous at night, and Mike can easily walk through that door. A billionaire businesswoman, Nancy, arrived at the police station. She was very upset. She said that her daughter Diana had disappeared. The day before, Nancy told Diana she would no longer give her money if Diana didn't go back to college. They argued because the girl didn't want to work or study. After that, Diana went out to get some fresh air and disappeared. Later that night, Diana called Nancy from an unknown number. She said, "Mom, I've been kidnapped. 3 guys put a black bag over my face and pushed me into their car. They want $5 million. We're driving through a desert. The men are wearing bunny costumes." The detective told Nancy not to worry. Diana staged her own kidnapping to get the money. How did he understand it? If Diana had had a black bag over her head, she wouldn't have seen the men's costumes or the desert. Vincent got locked in a room with no windows and only one massive door. There's a panel with several buttons on the left and another one with a hint on it on the right. There's also a clock on the wall above the door. Which button should Vincent press to get out of the trap? The green triangle. The numbers on the panel represent hours. If you connect them on the clock face, you'll get a triangle. The door opened and Vincent got into a dimly lit hall. There, he saw one more door, but this time, both the lock and the key were hanging together on the same chain. But after examining this system for a couple of seconds, the guy understood he wouldn't get out this way. Why? The key has a different pattern. It won't fit in the lock. Vincent needs to look for another way to escape. Then Vincent notices a table standing in a dark corner. There's a piece of paper, a knife, and several inflated balloons lying on it. Vincent picks up the paper. It's a note. To get out of here, you must puncture a balloon with a knife. But if the balloon loses any air or bursts, you'll stay here forever. Vincent thought for a while, then he did something and a hidden door opened in one of the walls. What did he do? He let the air out of one of the balloons. After that, he easily punctured it with a knife. Detective Marcus and another passerby became witnesses of a car accident. A man, hit by a minivan, was lying on the ground, unconscious. Marcus rushed to the nearest cafe to call an ambulance. When he got back, the passerby told him the man had turned onto his back but hadn't come to his senses. After looking at the scene for a couple of seconds, the detective said, "You'd better return everything you've taken from this man." Why did he say so? When they saw the man first, only one button was buttoned on his suit jacket, but now it's already 2 buttons. The passerby must have opened his jacket to look for the wallet and then buttoned it up incorrectly. Look at this picture and try to figure out who is an alien in disguise. It's the guy in the yellow shirt. He's eating a banana, but he hasn't peeled it before biting on it. He probably sees this fruit for the first time. 3 famous detectives came to a coffee shop to discuss a tricky case. A waiter came up to them and asked, "Does everyone want coffee?" The first detective said, "I don't know." The second detective answered, "I don't know." And the third detective said, "Yes." Do you know what the first 2 detectives ordered? All the detectives ordered coffee. Each of them wanted to have this drink, but the first 2 couldn't know if it would be everyone's choice. If the first 2 detectives hadn't wanted coffee, they'd have simply said no. So, when the third detective heard the replies of his colleagues, he figured out both of them wanted coffee. And since he was also going to take a cup, he said yes. Ralph, Willie, Amber, and Grace are in a museum room. Someone stole a priceless exhibit from this room several hours ago. Ralph, Willie, and Amber claim they have nothing to do with the crime, but the detective doesn't believe them. They all get arrested and taken to the police station. Only Grace, who hasn't answered the question, is free to go. Why? Grace is the detective. Janice was having her morning coffee in a cafe when she heard a car screeching to a halt, then loud shouting. She ran there and saw a man with his bicycle on the ground and a car standing nearby. The cyclist didn't look hurt, and Janice helped him to get up. The car driver came up to them too. The cyclist pointed at the man. "He made me crash by hitting my bike with his car." But the driver said, "I saw him losing control of his bike in the mirror. Then he fell to the ground, and I stopped the car to go check on him." Janice almost immediately understood who was lying. Have you figured it out? The car doesn't have side mirrors. There are also lots of things in the back seat. They block the view of the road. So the driver couldn't have seen anything in his rearview mirror either. He's lying. One wealthy businessman was famous for always wearing a white hat. But one day, he came to his office with a bunch of fruit on his head. His employees were shocked, but they didn't dare to question the man. The situation repeated the next day. On the third day, the businessman's secretary plucked up all his courage and asked what was going on. The man answered, "That's because I lost a bet. I haven't fulfilled it yet, but I'll do it today. There's no need to order lunch for me." What did the businessman have to do to fulfill the bet? When he made this bet, he said, "If I lose, I'll eat my hat." Detective Mark Darson suspected one man of committing a crime. He decided to stake out his house. Not too far away, he spotted an artist setting up her easel. Apparently, she was going to draw the criminal's house. At one point, the detective had to go away to the police station. He asked the girl to call him if she saw someone entering or leaving the house. She agreed. When Mark came back in the evening, the artist told him she'd seen no one. The detective immediately understood she was lying. How did he figure it out? When he was leaving, all the windows in the house were closed. But in the picture the girl drew, the windows are open. It means someone was inside while Mark was away. Take a look at this picture and try to understand which guy is Ben. Ben is the guy looking for something on the floor. He's the only one not wearing his shoes. That's because they're still in his locker. You've got a sack filled with coffee beans. You need to use this coffee to completely fill 2 other sacks of the same size. How can you do it? Put one empty sack into the other and fill them with coffee. A large sum of money was stolen from Mr. Green's safe. The police suspect Alan. But Alan says, "I don't know anything about safes or about how to open them. I'm a simple blacksmith." The detective doesn't believe him and asks Alan to prove it. He gives the guy one job-related task. If he copes with it, he's telling the truth. Alan gets 5 different chains. Each of them has 3 links. The detective asks the guy to make one chain out of these 5 pieces, but he can separate and combine only 3 links. In no time, Alan finished this task and was released. How did he do it? Alan separated 3 links of one chain and used them to connect the remaining 4 chains. Can you move just one matchstick to make a square? Pull this matchstick up a bit. Here's your perfect square. Mr. Bernard, a famous inventor, lived on the 6th floor of an apartment building. After long months of work, he finally created a time machine. He packed lots of food, water, and other necessary stuff and was ready to test his invention. He set the timer so that the machine took him 500 years back into the past. Mr. Bernard was about to press start when a thought came to his mind. He took the mechanism and carried it to his garage that was on the 1st floor. Why? This way, the inventor would avoid getting hurt. 5 centuries ago, there were no such high buildings. He'd simply fall to the ground from the height of the 6th floor. Look at these guys carefully. One of them lied when he said he hadn't painted the green smiley face on the fence. Which one is it? It's the guy on the left. Check out his left hand. Even though it's in his pocket, you can still spot some green paint he'd used. Bruce was walking along the beach when he found a glass bottle. The thing looked old, and the guy spent a long time trying to open it. Finally, he succeeded. To his shock, a genie rose from the bottle. "I'll fulfill your 3 wishes, but you aren't allowed to wish for more wishes." Bruce agreed, but still managed to get more wishes. How did he do it? His first wish was that the genie allowed him to ask for more wishes. Several birds landed on trees, 1 bird for 1 tree. But in this case, one of them didn't have a tree of its own. Then they regrouped, with 2 birds sitting on 1 tree. After this, 1 tree was left free. How many birds and trees are there? There are 4 birds and 3 trees. Detective Hall, one of the agency's most talented detectives, used his coded key and entered the apartment where the secret documents were hidden. To help him find them, his assistant Clark had left an encrypted note with the exact location of the documents. It looked like this. Detective Hall deciphered the message and found the documents. Where were they hidden? The note says, "Under the carpet in the studio." The detective just read it backwards and ignored the spaces between the words. Uh-oh, Tommy was exploring old caves outside the city when he got trapped in a mysterious dungeon. There were 3 ways out, but only one of them was safe. Behind the first door, a fire was raging. Behind the second door, there was acid rain, which could melt any substance within seconds. Behind the third door, there was a huge brown bear that hadn't eaten for 2 years. Which way should Tommy choose? Tommy should choose the third way. No animal can go for 2 years without food and survive. Barely. It was a stormy day, and it had been raining for several hours straight. A car accident happened in a tunnel. The yellow car crashed into the red one. The driver of the yellow car said it had been raining so heavily he hadn't seen anything, so the accident wasn't totally his fault. But the police asked the man to stop lying and claimed it was all his fault. Why? The accident happened in the tunnel. It couldn't be raining there. Mrs. McAdams, who was having a day off with her friends, came back home in the middle of the day to change her clothes. There, she found out that her daughter, Eveline, who she'd grounded, wasn't at home. Mrs. McAdams got angry and texted Eveline, asking where she was. Eveline texted her back, saying she was at school. The girl even attached a picture of the classroom. Mrs. McAdams didn't believe her daughter and told her to come home immediately. How did she understand Eveline wasn't at school? Look closely at her cell phone. It's Sunday. There's no school on Sundays. Ned works in a club. His job is to check people's ID cards and to not let suspicious people or people younger than 21 years old get inside. Take a look at these 3 ID cards and figure out who shouldn't enter the club. The first person is already 21, and nothing else looks suspicious in his ID. The second girl seems alright too. It's written that Brienne was born on September 31st. But such date doesn't exist. Her ID must be fake. Mrs. Cabell is the owner of a small company producing expensive designer cups. On Friday, when the working week was finally over, she got a call from her bank. The woman found out that someone had stolen all the money she had saved. Mrs. Cabell realized it must have been one of her workers, so she asked each of them what they had been doing that day. Sloan, a sales manager, said she had been talking to their clients and looking for new ones. Atticus, a potter, said he always made 1 cup a day, and he showed all the cups he had done that week. Sierra, a designer, said she had been working, but she also admitted she hadn't been really productive that day because of some family issues. Who lied? Atticus. There are 5 working days in a regular week. The man said he made 1 mug a day, but he only showed 4 mugs. It means he missed 1 day of work. Lennox and Finn were friends living in the same college dorm. One day, Lennox reported that something had happened to his friend. He said Finn hadn't left his room all day. He also never responded to any of Lennox's texts. In the evening, Lennox started to worry and knocked on Finn's door, but the guy didn't answer. Lennox peeked through the keyhole and saw that his friend was lying on the floor, so he called the police. After that, Lennox got arrested. Why? Lennox has a bandage on his right eye, but the keyhole is located in such a way that it's only possible to look inside with the right eye. It means the guy couldn't do it. He simply knew what had happened. Esme was having a walk in the forest and got lost. For about the 20th time. Hey, don't ask. Anyway, she found the witch's house, walked in, said hi, petted the cat, and asked the witch to show her the way home. But the witch had a problem. She was learning a new spell and accidentally did something strange to her chairs. On the bright side, she now had a riddle for Esme to solve. The witch had 20 chairs. Now, some of the chairs only had 2 legs, and half of the rest had no legs at all. How many legs did all these 20 chairs have in total? We know that some of the chairs have, on average, 2 legs per chair. The rest of them have either 4 legs or no legs at all. And since half of the rest have no legs and the other half have 4, together they have 2 legs per chair. So there are exactly 40 legs. Mr. Tucker was a businessman. He wanted to find an interesting hobby to impress people. He chose art, even though he knew nothing about it. Still, he kept buying paintings and even owned a couple of famous masterpieces. He liked to invite his potential business partners over to show off his collection. One day, his guest was Miss Geneva Darby, a young lady who owned a jewelry business. As always, Mr. Tucker boasted about his collection, but Miss Darby wasn't impressed. Why? Look closer at this supposedly 16th century painting. There are a couple of cars on the road, but there were no cars at that time, so the painting must be fake. Evie and Kai were planning to go on a bike tour with their friends. Unfortunately, Evie didn't feel well, so she canceled on her friends and asked Kai to stay with her. Kai was disappointed but agreed. Evie fell asleep. When she woke up, she already felt better. She offered Kai to ride their bikes a bit, just the two of them. But when they went outside, Evie realized that while she had been sleeping, Kai had been out with the friends without her. How did she understand it? Look, Evie's bike is all wet. It must have been raining while she was asleep. But Kai's bike is dry. It means that he used it and then wiped it off. Or maybe he wasn't even in the area when it was raining. 2 weeks ago, a bank was robbed, but the robber hadn't been found yet. A phone call woke Detective Callum up in the middle of the night. His colleague reported that a farmer had found the money. When the detective arrived, he questioned the farmer. The man said, "I argued with my wife and went outside. That's when I found a bag with money in a cornfield." Detective Callum asked if the farmer had noticed anything suspicious before. The farmer replied, "About 2 weeks ago, before going to bed, I looked out of the window. I saw a man walking through the field. It was a full moon and I could clearly see his silhouette. But there wasn't enough light to notice more details about him." The farmer was arrested. Why? The farmer said it had been a full moon 2 weeks before. But it's impossible. As you see, it's a full moon now. The farmer is lying. But why? Ashley was hurrying to an unplanned business meeting. She asked her boyfriend, Dean, to walk the dog. Dean agreed. But then his friend called and invited him to play a new video game. So the guy decided to skip walking the dog that day and joined his friends. He and Ashley met right outside the house when they both were going back home. Ashley asked what Dean had been doing. The guy said, "I walked the dog and then went to play video games with my friends." Ashley immediately understood he was lying. How did she figure it out? It's winter. Look at the footprints in the snow. There are Ashley's footprints going both ways and Dean's footprints going both ways too. But there are no dog footprints. Mrs. Rivers reported that someone had broken into her house. They stole all the money and jewelry she kept in her living room. Detective Callum arrived to investigate the crime. The room was a mess. It was obvious that someone had been looking for something there. But in the end, the detective concluded that there was no robbery. Mrs. Rivers made the whole thing up. Why did he decide so? Look at this very expensive and fragile tea set lying on the floor. If a criminal had really been there, he wouldn't have cared about the set. It would be smashed after falling down. It seems that when Mrs. Rivers was staging a robbery, she didn't feel like breaking her expensive tea set. Viviana and Malcolm were working outside. Malcolm was repairing the roof, and Viviana was working in the garden. Suddenly, a hammer fell from the roof and hit Viviana on the head. She was taken to a hospital, and the police came to figure out what had happened. When Malcolm told them everything, the police arrested him for staging an accident. Why didn't they believe the guy? Viviana was working right next to the house. She was sitting under the roof. If the hammer had fallen accidentally, it would have slid down the roof and fallen behind the woman's back. It could hit her only if someone threw it at her on purpose. Well, that's not nice. Doris was having a beach vacation with her friend Teresa. One morning, the young women were sunbathing near the water. Teresa went to a cafe to get some lemonade while Doris went swimming. When Doris came back, she saw that her smartphone, which she had left on her beach towel, was gone. "Have you seen my phone?" she asked the man sunbathing nearby. "Nah, I've been sleeping all this time." At this moment, Teresa came back with a lemonade. She looked around and immediately understood where Doris's phone was. Who took it? It was the man, all right. Before the incident, the spade was lying on his left. Now it's on the right. There's also a suspicious pile of sand near the spade now. The man must have hidden the phone in the sand, hoping to dig it out later. Terry invited his friend Alice, who was studying to become a police officer, to a party. It was organized by his friend Sean. Terry was worried there could be a thief at this party. Throughout the event, Alice was watching the guests attentively. At the end of the party, she told Terry who the thief was. Have you figured it out? It's the host, Sean. At the beginning of the party, one of the guests had a watch on his wrist, and this woman had a beautiful necklace. But at the end of the party, the watch is already on Sean's wrist, and the necklace is in the flower pot. Detective Carlson was walking along the street when he heard the sound of glass shattering. He looked around and saw a large crowd gathering near the broken window of a jewelry store. The shocked owner was inside. The detective ran up to him. "Has anything been stolen?" The man said he hadn't understood yet, but then Carlson exclaimed, "Sorry, I've got a thief to catch," and rushed away. What did he see? The store window was broken to distract everyone. People were looking away and didn't see this guy stealing a wallet from the man in a suit. At first, the wallet was in the man's pocket. Now the thief is rushing away, the wallet in his hand. The police had long suspected that Mr. Hall was a smuggler, transporting forbidden things on his yacht. That day, they knew for sure the cargo they were looking for was on his vessel. Several police officers came with a search warrant to the marina where Mr. Hall's yacht was parked. They examined every nook and cranny of the yacht, but didn't find what they were looking for. Mr. Hall was sneering while seeing them off. Suddenly, the youngest police officer exclaimed, "I know where the cargo is!" What did he understand? The cargo could only be underwater. Wrapped in a protective cover, it was tied to the anchor. Look at these guys carefully. One of them is not living alone. Who is it? It's the man on the right. He's got 2 toothbrushes. Austin, a rich businessman, brought very important documents to his office. But he had a meeting and needed to leave for several hours. Austin asked his secretary to be on the lookout for anything suspicious. His competitors could try to break into his office to look at the documents. When he came back, his secretary told Austin everything had been quiet. But when the man looked around, he realized someone had been inside his office. The secretary eventually admitted having fallen asleep while Austin was away. How did the businessman understand someone had visited his office? The globe on his desk is now turned in the opposite direction. William, a successful businessman, was having dinner at an expensive restaurant. At one point, he went outside to make an important call. When he returned, his case with money and documents was gone. The thief could only be another customer. When the police arrived, they questioned everyone who was in the restaurant. Karen said she had been writing a new chapter of her book. Paul said he had been waiting in a line to get to the bathroom. Donna had already paid for her coffee and was putting on her coat. And Robert was having a video call with his girlfriend. It didn't take detectives long to figure out who the thief was. Do you know it? The criminal is Paul. Besides him, there were only 4 other visitors at the restaurant, and they were all busy. How could there be any line for the bathroom? The police got informed that one of the most wanted criminals, Carl Walker, was going to arrive in the country. According to this information, the man was going to come by plane. Unfortunately, the police knew very little about him. He was short, wearing glasses, and traveling under a false name. Detective Adams went to the airport. He detained 4 people who fit the description. They were Mr. Lewis, Mr. Relcaw, Mr. Taylor, and Mr. Wilson. Look at these men carefully and try to figure out who the criminal is. It's Mr. Relcaw. His last name is actually the criminal's last name, Walker, but with its letters reversed. A detective is looking for an important witness. Without them, she won't be able to solve a complicated case. The only thing she knows is that the witness is left-handed. Look at these people and help the detective choose the person she needs. It's the waitress. She's holding the tray with her right hand and serving people with her left dominant hand. Look at these princesses and try to figure out which of them is the fake one. It's the princess on the right. The tiaras of the princess on the left and the one in the middle have a reflective shine to them. You can see they are made of precious metals. But the ice princess's tiara doesn't shine. It's made of plastic. A businessman arrived at his office after a long trip. He discovered that some important documents had disappeared from his desk. He immediately called the police, and a detective arrived shortly after. After interviewing all the workers, he had a list with 3 suspects on it. They were Emma, the accountant, Sophia, the receptionist, and James, the sales manager. But all of these people claimed they hadn't been inside the businessman's office. It didn't take the detective long to figure out who was lying. Do you have any ideas? The thief is James. Both women wear high heels in the office, but the footprints on the floor are obviously left by a pair of sneakers. An elderly lady called the police. She told them someone had sneaked into her house while she had been asleep. The intruder took away the money she kept hidden in her kitchen cupboard. The woman was sure it was one of her neighbors. The police visited all the neighbors, but each of them claimed they had spent the entire day at home. Look at their houses and try to figure out who the thief is. Rick is lying. He wasn't at home. His car was parked near the house already after the snow had built up on the driveway. Look at these people carefully. Who does this dog belong to? The dog's owner is the guy in the middle. He's the only one who isn't trying to pet the animal. Can you figure out how many watermelons there are in this picture? Five. Gloria failed her math test. Luckily, her professor was an understanding woman. She offered a deal. If the girl cracked 3 riddles, she'd get a good mark. Of course, Gloria agreed. The first task was to figure out the answer to the equation. Can you do the same? The answer is 232. Gloria didn't need much time to solve it and got the next puzzle. The student saw several numbers made up of matches. What should be the last number? The last number should be 1. After every step, the number of joints goes down by 1. And finally, the teacher gave Gloria several pool balls. Use only 3 of them to make this equation true. After a couple of minutes, Gloria figured out the way to do it. Do you know what she did? The girl rotated 9 and got 6. After that, she took the balls with numbers 13, 11, and 6 and got 30. Gloria's quick wit helped her, and she passed the test. You're trapped in a room with no doors or windows. All of a sudden, the room starts filling with water. You check everywhere, but can't find any way to turn it off. You know that help is on the way, but it's still at least 5 minutes until their arrival. You only have 2 minutes. After that, the entire room will be flooded. Obviously, you can't hold your breath for 3 minutes. You've got 3 objects, but only one of them can save your life. What should you choose? A straw, a rope, or an empty bucket? You should opt for the bucket. Put it on your head. This will create an air pocket, and you'll be able to breathe for a couple of minutes until help arrives. You've got lost in a desert. It's already dark, but bright moonlight illuminates the surroundings. At one point, you see a tower, but an evil wizard is looking out of the window. He tells you, "If you want to save your life, solve my riddle. You need to figure out the height of this tower." You look around and see nothing but several fallen tree branches. There's also a watch on your wrist and your own shadow. What can you use to figure out how high the tower is? Your shadow will help you. You can compare its length with the length of the shadow cast by the tower. Then, since you know your height, you can calculate the height of the tower. Alright, take a look at the sequence of letters. What are the next 3 ones? Each of the letters is the first one of the numbers from 1. O stands for 1, T for 2, T for 3, F for 4, F for 5, S for 6, and S for 7. Then there must be E for 8, N for 9, and T for 10. And that's today's alphabet lesson. Take a look at the picture and tell who's a ghost. It's the man on the very right. He doesn't cast a shadow. 2 people, Libby and Gray, were chilling on a beach. A police officer came up to them and said that he recognized the bike standing nearby. It was stolen from a man a couple of blocks away. He asked which one of them stole it, but both denied it. Can you tell who's guilty? Take a look at the footprints. They lead from the bike to the place where Libby is sitting, so she must be the one who took it. After an accident, Samara was experiencing memory loss. 3 guys came to visit her: her twin brother, her long-lost cousin she hasn't seen for 10 years, and a guy from school who liked her but she never talked to. Take a look at their wallets and decide who is Samara's brother. It must be this guy. Look, he has a picture with her. A random guy wouldn't have one. Neither would a long-lost cousin, because the photo wasn't made long ago. On the weekend, Kira and her friends were supposed to celebrate a birthday of a friend online, but Kira didn't show up. In school, her friends asked why she didn't come. She said that on Friday evening something happened, and she didn't have any internet or electricity for the whole weekend. She said that she used this chance to study and spent both days in front of the computer writing her midterm papers. Her friends didn't believe her. Why? If there was no electricity, she wouldn't be able to work on her computer. A PC doesn't work without electricity, duh, and a laptop wouldn't last for 2 days without charging. Lenore accidentally sent a message to her sister instead of her best friend and didn't want her sister to see it. She stole her sister's laptop and tried to delete it. However, the laptop required a password. Luckily, there was a hint: Math 2, Music 2, History 6 5, Drama 2 3. What's the passcode? Every number indicates the letter you should take out of the corresponding word. The second letter in math is A. The second letter in music is U. The sixth and fifth letters in history are R and O, and the second and third letters in drama are R and A. The password is Aurora. Esme was walking in the forest and got lost. Finally, like all the other times, she found the witch's house. Yeah, it's like Groundhog Day. She walked in, said hi, pet the cat, and asked to send her home. The witch wanted to make a deal. If Esme solves her brand new riddle, she'll help her. If not, Esme will stay with them forever. The witch blindfolded Esme. There was an unknown number of coins on the table. 6 of them were heads up, and the rest were tails. Blindfolded, Esme had to divide the coins into 2 groups so that there was the same number of coins heads up in both of them. How can she do it? So, since there are 6 coins heads up, Esme grabbed 6 random coins and flipped them. No matter how many coins there are and how many heads up ones she picks, it always works. That's because the number of tails up coins she gets among those 6 random ones is exactly how many heads up are left in the other pile. So when she flips them, they'll equalize. Estelle arrived on an island to spend her holiday there. All the locals there always tell the truth, and all the tourists always lie. 2 girls approached her, and one of them said, "Hey, I'm Sylvie, I am a tourist here, and this is Tessa, she's local." Can you tell if the girls are locals or tourists? Since locals always tell the truth, a local would never call themselves a tourist, so Sylvie must be a tourist. But she must be lying about something. If she told the truth about herself, then she's lying about Tessa. Therefore, Tessa is a tourist too. Miss Virginia Dell was a rich young lady. She loved jewelry and kept a collection of her favorite pieces behind the glass in her dressing room. One morning, she walked in and found that someone broke the glass and stole her jewelry. The detective had 3 suspects: Ms. Dell's cleaning lady, Willow, who cleaned the house every day; Ms. Dell's best friend, Kelly, who had the key from the house; and her cousin Sophia, who was staying with Ms. Dell for the holidays. Willow said that last night, when she cleaned the room at around 10 p.m., everything was all right. Kelly said that she hasn't been in the house for a couple of days. Sophia said that it's not in her manners to walk around someone else's house and steal jewelry. Who stole the jewelry? It's the cleaning lady. It seems like right after she broke the glass and stole the jewelry, she wiped off the pieces of glass while cleaning as well. It was a stormy night, and Alana and her sister stayed up late watching a soap opera. In the middle, there was a weather forecast. The weather lady said it'd keep raining for 2 more days, but in 72 hours, it'd be bright and sunny. Alana turned to her sister and said that the weather lady was wrong. Indeed, Alana was right. How did she know? In 72 hours, it would be the very same time as now, so it'd be night too. It can't possibly be bright and sunny at night. The Millers were having a barbecue party in the backyard. They made some fresh orange juice, and Giselle bragged that she could tell the difference between fresh juice and not very fresh juice. She asked her family to test her. She got blindfolded. Her brother brought some old juice from the fridge and let her drink it, and then he gave her some fresh juice. Giselle could tell the difference. How? The older juice from the fridge was colder than the fresh one was outside. Mr. Thompson was a strict English teacher who never allowed electronics in class and read all the paper notes aloud in class, so the students had to be conspirative. Once, he read out the following note: 1, 2, 8, 13, 5, 31, 3, 15. I love this book. I used to read it every month. Can you decode what the note says? The numbers stand for the place of the letter in the phrase. The first one is I, the second one is L, the eighth one is I, the 13th one is K, the fifth one is E, the 31st one is Y, the third one is O, and the 15th one is U. The note says, I like you. Ah. It was a lazy day, and it just started raining when Mr. Jones called a police officer. He said someone just bumped into his car and drove away. The police officer arrived. The only person not too far away from the place of the accident was a man trying to fix his tire. Mr. Jones says that's the gentleman who bumped into his car. However, the gentleman said that it couldn't be true because he was busy fixing his car the whole time. Can you tell who's lying? It's the guy fixing his car. The rain just recently started. If he was fixing his car the whole time, the ground underneath his car would have been dry, but it's wet, which means he's just arrived there. Brittany was having a costume birthday party. A detective came in the middle of the celebration, saying he's looking for a robber who must be there, pretending to be a guest. Take a look at the people and say who the detective's main suspect was. Look at this guy. Unlike all the other guests, his costume is totally inconsistent. It's a cowboy hat and joker's jacket. He probably wore whatever he could find in a rush, trying to hide. Yvonne went on a business trip and asked her boyfriend, Dale, to go and buy her a special chocolate bar from a man who came there once a month at midday. That day, he was busy playing video games and totally forgot about it. Yvonne asked him if he got her the snack, and he said that all the bars were sold out when he came. He even sent her a picture at the park to prove he was there. Yvonne looked at the picture and realized that Dale had lied to her. How? The shadows are too long, so it can't be midday since shadows disappear at noon. And the clock that says it's noon could have been photoshopped. 5 students stand in line. Adeline isn't next to Cleo. Bellamy isn't next to Danica or Cleo. Nor Cleo nor Bellamy are next to Eloise. From your perspective, Danica is on the left of Eloise. What are each girl's names? Adeline isn't next to Cleo, so we cross them from both columns, from Adeline's and Cleo's. Bellamy isn't next to Danica and Cleo. Danica and Cleo are both not next to Bellamy then. Cleo or Bellamy are not next to Eloise, and Eloise isn't next to them. Now, both Bellamy and Cleo have one neighbor, so they must be on the sides. But we don't know who's on the left and who's on the right. Let's try both. Bellamy's neighbor is Adeline. Cleo's neighbor is Danica, so in both cases, Eloise is in the middle. Now, let's remember the last condition that Danica is on the left of Eloise, so the first order is correct. It's Cleo, Danica, Eloise, Adeline, and Bellamy. Whew! Detective Callum was having his evening coffee in a cafe and heard a waiter and a female customer arguing. He came up to them and asked what happened. The waiter claimed the woman ordered a soup, but the woman said that she didn't. Detective Callum knew exactly who was lying. Who was it? The sign on the door says that the cafe serves hot dishes only till 4 p.m. Take a look at the clock. It's 7 p.m. Even if she wanted to, the woman couldn't order the soup because it was too late. So, the waiter is lying. Chase was watching TV in the living room while his wife, who was in her third trimester, was cooking dinner in the kitchen. Suddenly, Chase felt unwell and fell unconscious. His wife got dressed and took him to the hospital. When he finally woke up, he couldn't remember anything, including what his wife looked like. There were 3 women, each of them claimed to be his wife. Can you tell who his wife is? Firstly, his wife was pregnant and was in her third trimester, so she must have a belly. So it isn't the woman on the left who doesn't look pregnant at all. Now look at the shoes of the other 2 women. One of them has her shoes untied. That's because she couldn't lean down and tie them herself, and her unconscious husband couldn't help her. So it seems like she is his real wife. Esme was having a regular walk in the forest. In the evening, she decided to come back home but got lost. She was wandering around until, guess what? She found the witch's house. She walked in, pet the cat, and asked if the witch can send her home. The witch was about to start a frog farm, and she needed Esme's help. If Esme solves it, the witch will let her go. If not, Esme will have to stay forever and work on her frog farm. She got 2 frogs. The number of frogs doubles every day. The seller told her that her little frog pond in the yard would be filled with frogs entirely in 100 days. How many days will it take for the pond to be half filled? Since the number of frogs doubles every time, the pond will be half filled the day before the pond is filled completely. So it'll happen on the 99th day. Emery was on the expedition and finally found an old cave where pirates used to leave their treasures. However, there are 4 chests, but only one had the gold. If Emery touches the wrong one, she'll get locked in the cave forever. The first chest said, "The treasure is in chest 2 or chest 4." The second one said, "It's in chest 1 or chest 3." The third chest says, "It's in here." The fourth one said, "It's not in here." However, only one of these statements was true. So which chest should Emery pick? If the treasure is in the first chest, statements 2 and 4 are correct. However, there should only be one correct one. If it's in the second chest, the first one and the fourth one are true. If it's in the third chest, then 2 statements are true, the second and third. So Emery should pick the fourth chest. This way, only the first statement is correct and the treasure is in the fourth one. Detective Callum was in a bank and heard 2 women arguing. Mrs. Lewis and Mrs. Clark were both claiming that a handbag was theirs. Luckily, one young man took a picture of the waiting room just before the argument. So take a look and tell who the handbag belongs to. The handbag stands right between the women. However, Mrs. Lewis has a cast, and the bag stands next to her broken arm. If it was her handbag, she would put it on the other side of her, so the bag must belong to Mrs. Clark. Nick and Collins were traveling by train, and they were leaving at the same station. Collins stood up first and got his bag. But when Nick got his bag, he opened it and realized it wasn't his. So he accused Collins of trying to steal his bag. However, Collins says it was just an accident, because the bags looked exactly the same. Still, Nick didn't believe it was an accident. Take a look inside their bags and try to guess why. Collins' bag is only filled with a couple of plush toys, while Nick's bag had electronics and many books. Collins couldn't take Nick's bag by accident because even though they're similar, their weight is too different, and he'd noticed that. In the morning, Mrs. Miller was wrapping Christmas presents for her family. She left to take a shower when she was done, but the gifts were gone when she returned. She went downstairs and asked her family who took the presents, but everyone denied taking them. Her husband said that he was watching TV the whole morning and didn't even get up. Her daughter, Amanda, said that she forgot about the laundry hanging outside last night, so she was out picking it up. Her other daughter, Jane, said that she was in the kitchen eating. Can you tell who lied? It was Amanda. Her laundry is perfectly folded and dry, but it's cold outside and the laundry would be all frozen if she just picked it up. Mason was arrested for robbing a bank. The police knew that his girlfriend helped him and wanted to arrest her too. They had 4 suspects. One of them was the girlfriend who was lying. Another was his sister, who didn't rob the bank, but was also lying because she wanted to help. The other 2 girls were innocent and were telling the truth. So who is Mason's girlfriend? Selena says Amelia is his girlfriend. Felicia says Penelope is lying. Penelope says Selena is lying. Amelia says Felicia is not his sister. If Selena is telling the truth, Amelia is lying. Then Felicia is his sister who's lying. Therefore, Penelope is telling the truth. It contradicts that Selena is telling the truth. So, Selena is lying. Then, Penelope is telling the truth, and Felicia is lying. So, Amelia must be the other girl telling the truth. 2 liars are Selena and Felicia. They are Mason's girlfriend and sister. Since Amelia says Felicia isn't his sister, then Selena is his sister, and Felicia is his girlfriend. Archer was watching TV when he got a call. Detective Callum said that his friend George was poisoned and asked to come. Archer arrived as soon as he could and was immediately arrested for poisoning his friend. Why? The detective didn't say where exactly to come. Maybe coming to his friend's house could be logical, but they are in some park. How would Archer know where to come if he didn't know what happened? A postman called Detective Callum and said someone needed help and gave the address. The detective arrived and found Mr. Hanks tied to a chair. Mr. Hanks said that he had been sitting there for several hours. Someone broke into his house at night, tied him up, and stole all of his money. His wife was outside the city. When the postman brought the mail in the morning, he asked for help. However, Detective Callum didn't believe the man and said that he staged it. Why didn't he believe Mr. Hanks? The letters the postman just brought don't lie on the floor by the door. Instead, they're on the shelf, where only someone who is inside the house could put it. If Mr. Hanks sat there tied up all night and was alone, it'd stay on the floor. It was Christmas morning in California, and Detective Callum got an anonymous note that someone going to Alaska would hijack the plane and take it to Hawaii. He arrived at the airport and stopped several people. Take a look at them and tell who's planning to hijack the plane. It must be the man who's the very first in line. It's Christmas, and people are going to Alaska. It's cold there in winter. Still, the guy is lightly dressed and doesn't have any luggage with him. It seems that he knows he isn't planning to land in cold Alaska. Damon, Karis, and Geneva are best friends. Now, take a look at their hands and tell which one of them is a millionaire. Damon has a Versace watch on his wrist, but it must be a fake one. Look, Versace is written with an H. Karis has some gold bracelets, but she has scratched nail polish. Geneva has just one bracelet, but it's Gucci and silver, and her nails look very neat. So I'd say she's a millionaire. Miss Harrelson called the police and reported that someone had broken into her house. When the officers arrived, they found the woman tied up to a chair. She said a man in a black mask had entered her house and tied her up so that she couldn't even move. Then he had stolen all her savings and left. But the officers didn't believe Ms. Harrelson and arrested her for misreporting. Why? If the woman couldn't move, how did she manage to call the police? It was Hazley's birthday. Her parents said that they had a present for her, but she had to find it first. To help the girl, they gave her a note that said, "Where should the girl look for her present?" It seems as if the note doesn't make any sense, but that's only because the two halves of each word are switched. If Hazley places them in the correct order, she'll get pretty straightforward instructions. Your present is hidden in the basement. Sydney told her mother that she and her gymnastics team were going to a sports camp for the weekend. Mrs. Stevenson knew her daughter well and suspected it was just an excuse. Sydney was going to spend the weekend with her boyfriend instead. Still, the woman helped Sydney pack and let her go. When the girl returned, she was angry with her mom for forgetting to pack a toothbrush. That was when Mrs. Stevenson realized she had been right and Sydney hadn't been to the sports camp. How did she figure it out? When she packed Sydney's things, she put the toothbrush in the bag with her gymnastics clothing. If her daughter had indeed been to the sports camp, she'd have opened the bag and found the toothbrush. But she didn't, which means she never used that bag. Look at these people who are doing their grocery shopping. One of them has stolen a watermelon. Can you tell who? It must be this guy on the right. He's holding a soccer ball, but it looks as if it's very heavy. And since soccer balls don't weigh much, it must be a disguised watermelon. Mason went on an expedition to Antarctica. His boss asked him to send pictures as proof that he was actually there. Mason sent pictures every day, but when he returned from the expedition, his boss fired him. Take a closer look at the pictures and try to understand what his boss didn't like. Mason was sent to Antarctica, but in some pictures, you can see palm trees. No wonder the boss realized the photos were photoshopped and Mason hadn't gone there at all. An old man had extremely poor vision. He was living with his son, Mark, because he needed assistance all the time. One day, the man was resting in his armchair while his son was preparing dinner. Suddenly, Mark heard glass shatter. The man ran into the room and saw that the window was broken. He asked what had happened. His father told him that some dark-eyed, dark-haired guy had thrown a stone into the window and shattered it. Then he ran away. But Mark didn't believe his father. Why? The man had extremely poor vision, and he wasn't wearing his glasses at the time of the accident. He couldn't see the guy, let alone the color of his hair and eyes. Savannah went on a business trip with her husband. In the evening, the woman didn't feel well and suddenly blacked out. When Savannah woke up a couple of hours later, she couldn't remember anything. There were two men in front of her and both claimed to be her husband. The woman couldn't remember which of them was her real husband. Can you help her figure it out? They went to a business meeting. That's why they are both dressed accordingly. The guy in a hoodie doesn't look formal, so her husband must be the other one, the man who's wearing a suit. Now, this girl, Susanna, can't remember who her husband is too. Can you help her? It must be this guy. Look, he's wearing a ring while the other doesn't seem to be married. Ava's parents, John and Catherine, came to the hospital to pick up the teenager. Can you tell which of these young people is their child? It's this girl. John and Catherine are Ava's parents. Ava is a girl's name, and she's the only girl in the room. Esme was having her usual walk in the forest. By nighttime, she realized she had gotten lost again. She was wandering around until she came across the witch's house. The girl petted the cat, greeted the witch, and asked the woman to send her home. At that time, the witch was participating in a math tournament for witches from all over the world. She really wanted to win and to prove she was the smartest witch out there. There was one last task she couldn't solve. The witch promised that if Esme helped her, she'd let her go home. If not, Esme would have to stay with the witch forever. Here's the task. Make 3 identical squares by moving only 3 matches. You just have to move these 3 matches over there. It works, and Esme can return home. Thor asked his friends to guess what his laptop's 3-digit password was. Each of them made a guess. The numbers they chose were 357, 902, 907, 954. Even though no one's guess was right, every person guessed 1 digit correctly and exactly in its right place. Can you figure out Thor's passcode? Since just one of them guessed 1 digit correctly, the first digit can't be 9. In this case, 3 people would have guessed it right, and there wouldn't be enough people to guess the third digit. The only other option for the first digit is 3, which means the second digit can't be 5 and the third one can't be 7. Since the second one can't be 5, then it's 0. 2 people guessed it correctly. And the third digit is 4. If it was 2, it would mean someone guessed 2 digits correctly, 0 and 2. But that's not true. So, Thor's code is 304. Students were divided into 2 teams to do one task. Storm, Dean, and Brooke were in Team Yellow. Elsie, Emma, and Veda were in Team Purple. Following the same logic, what group does Lexi belong to? In Team Yellow, there are students whose names have just 1 syllable. In Team Purple, there are students with the names that consist of 2 syllables. Lexi's names has 2 syllables, so she belongs to Team Purple. Atlas got trapped in the attic of an old house. There are just 3 ways out, and all of them dangerous. Behind the first door, the roof and the floor are made out of magnifying glass, and the sun will burn anyone who comes in. Behind the second door, there's a room filled with poisonous gas, and the third door is hiding a hungry lion. How can Atlas escape? He should wait until it's night. The sun will set, and the guy will safely walk through the first door. Now, take a look at Iris and her close friends, Max, Ginny, Josh, and Ren. Who's her partner? It must be Josh. Look, they have matching tattoos. On a rainy night, Dylan was driving past a bus stop. There were 3 people there: an elderly lady who was feeling unwell, a doctor who saved many lives, and Selena, a girl Dylan had been crushing on for years. Unfortunately, there was only room for 1 more person in the car. What should Dylan do? He should give his car to the doctor, who would take the elderly lady and drive her to the hospital. And Dylan can stay at the bus stop with the girl of his dreams. Charlie, Andy, Taylor, and Alex are all related to each other, but one of them is the opposite gender from the other 3. Here's what you know. Alex is either Charlie's brother or Charlie's only daughter. Alex's sister is either Andy or Taylor. Taylor's only son is either Charlie or Andy. Can you tell who's the opposite gender from the other 3? If Alex is Charlie's only daughter, then Alex cannot have a sister. It means that Alex is Charlie's brother. If Alex's sister is Andy, then Andy's a girl. And according to fact 3, Charlie is Taylor's only son. But Alex is Charlie's brother. So we have a contradiction here. It means that Alex's sister is Taylor. So Taylor's a girl. Charlie, Alex, and Taylor are siblings. And Andy is Taylor's son. Keenan was watching TV when a detective arrived with a search warrant. The detective said that the city bank had been robbed, and Keenan was the main suspect. The man replied that he hadn't even left the house that day. He couldn't do anything. The police didn't find the money, but still arrested the man. Why? Keenan said he hadn't left the house, but take a look at the calendar and the grocery store receipt. The dates are the same. It means Keenan at least did some grocery shopping and lied about not leaving the house. That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends.